everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I am super excited to share with you guys my life coach and business coach, Jule Kim at It's Jule Kim. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Oh, I have received so much good feedback with you and working with you over the last couple of months. Jewel and I met inside of a different forum and we hit it off immediately. And I've been working with her over the last couple months with business coaching, and I just wanted to share all of her amazing knowledge with all of you guys today. And so when I asked her to come on, she said yes. I was so excited. So thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So one of the things that I was hoping to talk about to help people, because 2020 has been kind of a rough year, or how 2020 has been for you. Like what was your takeaway from 2020?
Well, I'm not going to lie. So before I did coaching, I was actually a photographer, and I'm actually in the process of kind of winding all of that down. And it hit me really hard, right? So I finally got my photography business to a place where I wanted. I was getting clients on a regular basis. I was making, really good money. And then COVID happened and quarantine happened. And the governor, here in Washington, he shut down all non-essential businesses. And I just had a meltdown. I was freaking out. It's like I'm not like one of those corporate IT workers where I can just work from home. It's like I'm shut down. Like, I can't virtually take photos of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up kind of melting down all through March. And then April I started to kind of come out of the funk, and I was looking around, and I ended up being like, it ended up being like a really good opportunity for me to really confront how I had really been feeling about photography. So even though it was making pretty good money for me, it was never like the thing that I really loved.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I went into it because I thought I would love it. And, in the beginning I did love it. But, there are things about like photography that people just never tell you. They don't tell you you end up like as this sweaty, like nervous wreck, with every client, right? Like with the sweaty armpits. And because, there's actually a lot of manual labor, lugging around all the equipment. Like you don't find these things out until you actually do it. And so while I had gotten into my groove, I found my rhythm, I, established a workflow, I knew how to get clients. Like it ended up not being like the thing I really wanted to do. And so had COVID not happened, I probably would have still been out there chasing that money just because it was what I knew how to do. Mm. But because of being shut down and being shut down for like 2 months, it forced me to stop and like really like for like maybe the second time in my life to really think about what is it that I want to do. And so that's actually how I found coaching. Mm. And I met somebody online who she wanted me to coach her with her marketing. And in return, she traded me her own life coaching. Mm. And so she ended up telling me that I was basically like a life coach already. And so after talking to her, and before what she told me what coaching was, in my head I thought it was like this crazy like woo-woo thing, like coach, what's that? and then I looked into it and I found out it was actually like it's very psychology based, and you can get like a real certification. You can actually get many certifications for it, and that's how I ended up enrolling and getting certified. So
it truly is. You are natural at it. Like just when we first met, I immediately clicked with you, and then just in our few conversations I had, I just really, the way you explained things to me just really resonated and made me think about things differently. So,
oh, thank you so much.
And for me to say like, oh, you're my business coach and now my life coach, that was kind of an evolution. So, coaching for me, well, tell people exactly more about what coaching is, and I'll just talk about my experience with you in a little bit. So if someone is looking for like, if they're stuck in a rut and they're stuck in their business or their life, how does coaching come into that for them?
So that's actually a really hard question. So you can kind of think of coaching as like your friend, but it's your friend who won't let you get away with all the bullshit that you normally kind of put out there. Like it's your one friend who's always going to be honest with you, who holds you accountable, and who helps shift your perspective and see things differently. So what I tell people normally is that coaching is how you basically become like the 2.0 or the 3.0 version of yourself faster.
Mm.
and and it's, you know, it's essentially like you're gonna have somebody who's like your cheerleader, but like not in like a fluffy cheerleader like yay yay way. It's, you know, it's somebody who's gonna have like those hard conversations with you and really like make you get, you know, recognize like the real truths about yourself. And so what happens is people will get stuck in like their business or their career or life, like whatever, right? They'll get stuck, but they always want to identify external factors as the reason, right? Like, oh, my boss isn't, you know, promoting me, like my company like doesn't like me, my company doesn't value me, or you know, I don't know, I'm just like not bad at marketing, so I need to get better at marketing. And it's really more, it's usually a question of you're actually afraid of something that keeps you from showing up in the world as fully who you are and who you're meant to be. And a coach is somebody who will help close that gap for you and get you like to that future place faster. And I don't know, like you're actually, you know, somebody I work with. So what would you say? Like, what would you say to somebody like, you know, what did you find valuable about coaching?
Oh, well, so many things. I have to say, we started off just trading, like for everyone who doesn't know, we just met up and just like clicked. So we just started off trading like advice on different things, right? So Jewel helped me with my course launch and I was kind of telling her about social media. And then the more we talked, the more I realized like, oh, I want to talk to her more. And I finally decided how much does it cost, Jewel, for you to coach me? And so we got it all worked out. And I have to say, in just the few sessions we've had, it's made me look at what I want more deeply. And instead of just being out there kind of running on a hamster wheel, trying to just make things or do things, it's made me stop, especially our last conversation, stop and really think, what am I going to put out as content? Who do I want to be moving forward? And taking those initial steps of baby steps instead of just jumping straight into the lake, you know, where that's what I was kind of doing and not getting the results that I was thinking I deserved or that I was hoping for or whatever. So it's been actually really powerful. And there's some things that you said that I was telling Steve. Um, it just made me reevaluate myself and think more deeply. And it's really been hugely beneficial. Honestly, I can't imagine my future without you. You're not going anywhere.
Oh, I love
Unless
working
you
with
fire
you.
me.
No, no freaking way, Lisa. Like, I totally love working with you.
So it's been an amazing experience. And I would think for anybody who is ready to take their life to the next level is definitely something you should look into. And I love Jules, so please reach out to her first.
I would love that, but you know, honestly, it's, you know, you want to find someone who's right for you. And so just look into coaching, period. Like it doesn't have to be me. Like just find somebody who clicks with you. And as soon as like you place your trust in that person, like things really start to happen. So, you know, at the end of the day, if you really want to make things happen and not just talk the talk, but actually walk the walk, then like a coach is a great way to do it.
Yeah, I am seeing that. And it's true the way you described, it's like having a friend, but the one that's going to give you no BS. And I think for anybody who is pursuing a life bigger or harder, that's what you need. And that's what you're doing. And I appreciate it.
Yeah. Love it.
I love it too. Um, so for people who want to like shift their mindset in the upcoming year, what are some things they could, so not everybody can get a coach. So like, let's give a little bit of advice for some people right now. 2020 has been a rough year. And if people are looking to 2021 and they're kind of in a rut, what do you think how they can shift their mindset a little bit now to help set them up for future success, whatever it is, just getting through the day or moving forward in a different career?
So the first thing I'm gonna say is one, how you talk about anything influences how you see everything. So you'll notice, as you go around, if you look on social media or if you're just talking to your friends, pretty much everyone is like, is 2020 over yet? Like this was a dumpster fire of a year, and I'm so ready for 2021. And the problem there is, while that's kind of funny and yeah, like pretty much everyone can relate, the fact that you keep focusing your language and therefore your thoughts upon how negative and how bad 2020 was will only influence how you see 2021 as well, right? You're also placing unrealistic expectations on somehow 2021 coming in and magically saving you, from like all the horrors of 2020. And it's like you deep down, that's probably not going to be true because it's not going to be like external circumstances or things magically lining up and saving you. Like you have to save yourself.
Mm.
And so number one is like I always like to tell people is, hey, like stop focusing on all the negative stuff, and start looking at some of the positive things, right? And it's really hard. Like if you sit down even for like 10 minutes and start trying to make a list of everything good that's happened like this month or last month or this year, you'll find it's actually very hard to like write down like the positives, right? Like the pros versus the cons. Whereas if you start writing down the cons, it's gonna be like this river that just flows out of you. And that happens because our brains are actually hardwired through evolution to focus on the negative, right? So, way back a zillion years ago, our brains focused on threats, recognizing immediate threats, recognizing anything negative, because it was literally life and life or death back then. And so that's kind of carried forward, right? Because the people who recognized the threats are the ones who survived, which is how it kind of got baked into our DNA. But where that doesn't serve us now is you so easily fall into the habit of focusing on the negatives, right? It's a habit both in your brain, like the actual way your brain works, and then you're actually teaching yourself the habit emotionally and spiritually, and just like in all your personal life, you're teaching yourself that that's how you're going to be, right? That's how you're going to show up in your world, in your life, as this kind of person who only sees the bad things. And so that's probably one of the first things that you want to look at for shifting your mindset.
Mm.
And yeah, so like I totally advise you take a piece of paper or open up your notebook or iPad or something and like actually start trying to make a list to look at like what are some of the good things that have happened in 2020, you know?
No, I think that's so true. And even how I introed that, I looked at it as like, God, I want 2020 over and we're not even through it. But it's true. 2020 did for me have a lot of good moments. And I think you're right. We definitely tend to focus on the negative. That is where my brain goes to. And I think the majority of people and taking that time to reflecting on all the positives would be probably the best place to start for the new year.
Yeah, it's definitely a great place to try and shift the mindset. And so what you're also doing there is like a couple of things all rolled into like one exercise. So number one, because our brains want to focus on the negative so much, negative events or negative interactions of any kind leave a longer lasting impression on us. And so when you're thinking about 2021 and you're thinking, hey, I want it to be like my year, like, and I want it to be different from 2020, then you're also teaching yourself that when those good things happen, it's like you want to stop and celebrate those things. You want to savor the moment because your brain, being this kind of crazy like Jack in the Box, you're wanting to offset that natural tendency to focus on the negative. And so since bad things kind of leave a longer lasting impression on us, you're offsetting that by celebrating the good things when they do happen. So really enjoy the moment and draw it out for yourself, right? because if you don't do that, if you don't make a conscious, intention to do that, like your brain's not gonna like just tell you to do that either.
Right. No, it's so true. It's true. That's a great way to put it. Couldn't have said it any more perfectly. Another thing for me to think about. I love it.
You know, you're actually a natural at this, Lisa. Like when we talk in our conversations, and I see you actually pulling yourself up by like the bootstraps, like you'll tell me something that was really vulnerable. You'll tell me something was really hard or something, just didn't go well. And then I see you, like I actually see you catch yourself. And like you even did it, in our last conversation, you were like, well, I'm an adult, like this isn't how I want to be. Like,
Mhm.
like this isn't like I can't have this, this pity party for myself all the time. So you're actually pretty good at it. Like you've built up your happiness muscles quite well, I think.
Well, thank you. I'm working. I'm a work in progress. I think everyone is a work in progress, and I think um, realizing that and giving yourself grace, in this time, especially in any time in our life, whatever age, whatever stage. That's been a big lesson for me this year, is kind of just giving myself grace when I can, and realize that I'm not going to be perfect, and not everything I do is going to be perfect. And so I thank you for that. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you get caught up in your own head, and I think even being quarantined and being home a lot, I think has given a challenge for some people. But I think as one of my blessings of 2020, it's helped me self reflect more and given me time that I never had before. So I guess I would be on my positive list.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you brought up a great point just now, actually, where you mentioned giving yourself grace, and so just keep in mind that everything that I'm sharing with you and your listeners on the podcast, it's no one's telling you that you have to magically like do a 180 in your thinking. Like you're allowed to acknowledge that, hey, like some things were really hard this year. Some things, didn't make me feel good. Like that's totally okay. No one's expecting you to be like a magician and just pull, like a bunny out of your hat and suddenly be like, hey, 2021, like new me. Like that's not gonna last. Like if anything, it's more, you're not really acknowledging all the challenges that you've already survived and like even overcome. And so you just again, like you said, it is about giving yourself that grace and acknowledging that sometimes things weren't so great, and that's perfectly okay. It's more of a question of what do you want moving forward.
Yeah. Along with mindset, like what other techniques can people use to kind of shift their mind and move things into a positive direction?
Yeah, so with my clients, I generally see three sort of techniques that work really well, no matter the person.
Mhm.
And one of them was what I mentioned earlier about, really savoring the positive wins when they happen or whatever achievements, no matter how big or small. So it's human nature to judge ourselves and be like, oh, that thing, like, that's not really that big of a deal. Or like even if you get a promotion, you're like, oh well, I had it coming all along. It's whatever. And it's like, don't do that. That's number one. Like, don't do that. Just take it for what it is at face value and be like, hey, like you now have something you didn't have before, and set aside some time and intention to celebrate it. And it's even better when you do it with people, so people who appreciate you, who know you, who understand, like, hey, like this thing kind of was a struggle, but now I got here. So like that's always one thing, is to like really almost turn it into a ritual or some kind of event, right? Something that your mind can latch onto. Two, I'll say, is reframing. So you may already be familiar with the idea of reframing, but you've probably already experienced the idea, like when you were, I don't know, 7. When you heard that idea of, is your glass half empty or half full? That was the very first instance of reframing that you probably encountered in your life. And it's true. So you can choose to see only the bad things about something, or you can choose to spin it and really focus on like instead of the bad things, which you already know, which your mind already jumps to, like all people do,
Yeah.
instead, like take a little bit of time and think about how can I spin this into something that is, if not totally positive, at least spin it into something that's neutral. And so you just want to get away from like that, again, that negative habit that your brain like wants to go down that path every time. And so, you know, for example, I could say, hey, I could really beat myself up of like over the fact that I didn't go to the gym. And so COVID aside, maybe I would have gone to the gym a little bit more, but you know, ultimately I haven't been working out this year. You know, my goal of working out, you know, 3 times a week has rapidly fallen to no times a week and for 6 months straight. I think a lot of you can relate, right?
Right.
So instead of saying, oh, like, you know, I'm a terrible person, you know, or even more like I hate the gym, like I could sit around making excuses all day. Instead, I'm gonna cut myself a little slack and be like, hey, I'm actually being safe not going to the gym, right? It's like who knows what I may come into contact with or who I may come into contact with. So I'm actually taking care of my health right now. And not just me, but I'm taking care of the health of my husband because if I get sick, you know, he's probably going to get sick too. So I'm being careful and I'm making sure that everyone else around me also stays healthy. So that's one example of reframing.
I like that.
Yeah.
I especially love that one.
Yeah. I think you can relate, right? Like you just got over
I can
like
totally relate. I was supposed to be working out 3 times a week outside and I'm just not. I even got a puppy to walk and Steve's walking the puppy.
Well, you know what? I know you have so much going on in your life. So even if you're not working out, you're actually moving quite a bit and expending energy. Like I know you. Like
I am.
the other thing that people don't know is that your brain actually uses up an immense amount of energy. And you told me yourself that your mind is just running at 1,000,000 miles an hour always, right? With all the
Always.
ideas you've got. Yeah. So you're actually using more energy than you think.
I love that. I just have to tell my butt that.
Hello, butt, catch up with the head.
Yeah. Like, hey, put the energy down here. Okay. Let's talk about New Year's resolutions because a lot of people have them. And like, what is your take on New Year's resolution? Like, is it positive? Is it like I have a feeling you're going to have something really good to say.
So yes, I have my own particular mode of love hate with resolutions. Even like before I became a coach, like I reached this point in my life where I was like, you know what, I'm not even gonna make resolutions anymore because why lie to myself, right? I'm gonna come out of delusional land and just be honest. It's like no, I'm not gonna even make them because I never keep them. And what I found was after digging into the psychology behind resolutions, what's happening there is one, people aren't being realistic most of the time. So, again, the example of me with the gym, I'm a person who never worked out, who hasn't worked out in the last 15 years. And then I'm all of a sudden one day I'm like, I'm going to work out 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Like really, how realistic is that?
Right.
You're talking about an entire lifestyle change. So we like to think that, oh, it's just something we have to go do, but we're not really thinking about who it is we have to become to make these things happen. And so in my mind, I was still thinking, oh, I really hate working out. I just, I hate touching machines other people have touched. I hate having to leave my house and go drive myself to the gym, all of those things. And never once did I ever imagine myself as the future me where I'm like, you know what? It's not that I'm trying to go work out. It's I'm just a person who works out. And so resolutions work when you actually think about them as setting habits. So you're not setting goals, which are more externally driven. So goals are more like what we tend to do, right? Like you hear it all over the place, all over the internet. And people are always talking about goal setting and, what are your goals? What are your 5-year goals? All this. But no one ever talks about changing your identity. So goal setting is a process that works from the outside in. And when you actually want to make a change, like in the case of resolutions, you actually want to do it from the inward out. And so the core like inward out process is actually changing your identity. So it's the difference between saying I'm trying to work out versus saying I'm a person who actually works out. You know, if you're talking about someone who smokes, it's I'm trying to quit smoking versus I'm not a smoker, right? Like that's a definitive shift. That's a clear line in the sand. You're saying I'm this kind of person. And then what that does is, well, if I'm a person who works out, is not going to the gym for 6 months straight, like, is that in alignment with who I'm saying that I am? No,
Right.
like clearly it's not. So like that's actually one of the most effective ways to make New Year resolutions actually stick. So again, you want to keep the thing to being super realistic if you can, but then two, you want to make sure that you're thinking about your future you. Like, who is this future you? Like, does she or he work out? Does this person like blog every day, or does this person clean the house like, once a week? Like, stop focusing on the action and focus instead on who you want to be, right? So yes, I'm a person who would like to have like a beautiful house like what you have, Lisa, right? It's instead of thinking to myself, oh, I'm a train wreck, like I'm a typical like Asian person where none of my furniture matches and things are just kind of like oddly stuck in weird places. It's like, no, I'm a person who has a beautiful home. And so therefore I'm going to try and work towards that and make it happen.
I love that. So instead of creating a resolution, think of the person you want to be and work on the habit to become that person.
Yeah.
I
So
love
build a habit. And just by the way, like a quick tip is what makes a habit actually like deserve the label of a habit is when you've done that thing consistently, either every day or every week for at least 4 weeks straight, because
that.
because 4 weeks is the minimum time it takes for anything to actually start setting in and really becoming a habit.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's a lot of information. That's a lot of amazing tips. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and talking to my audience. I've valued your friendship and now I value your advice even more, getting to know you. And thank you for being a part of my life. And thank you for sharing with the audience today. And I think people are going to get so many valuable tips and hopefully things that turn into habits that can take them into the new year and also look at 2020 in a more positive light. So thank you for being on today.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. And, again, thank you as well. I love everything about you. And I know that you're going to, like, you're already big. Like, you crossed 100,000 followers on Instagram. So I just can't wait to see what you do next.
Oh, thank you. And have a good day and I will talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. Bye, Lisa.
Bye.